So, Aidan, thanks so much for joining me today in the studio here in Dubai.
Mm.
I'm very much like on a personal development journey. I think I have been for a lot of my life, actually. Probably since 24, and it's great to come across people like yourself. So, just as a quick intro, I know that you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur. Like for the past 15 years, you're Irish as well.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than, I guess, go into that because people can Google it, I'll go straight in.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to really understand the origin story. I'm always interested in that. Even if I see a movie, I want to know how they started and how they got to where they've got to. So I
Right.
know that your coaching journey and your entrepreneur journey, if you could just maybe dive into how that all came about, really, and maybe what was I guess the point where you're like, okay, this clicks.
Right. So I suppose my background was health and wellness initially. So I was running gyms in Limerick in 2007, 2008. And I was manager of a gym and it was cool and I liked it and I liked the leadership and I liked kind of the bigger picture stuff. But in 2009, then I ended up going working on the cruise ships because you remember 2008 and 2009, it was pretty depressing
Yeah.
back in Ireland back then. And I always say Limerick is the Ireland of Ireland in terms of mindset. So in 2009, I went working on the cruise ships and I absolutely loved it. I'd always loved to travel. I was going to America every summer anyway. I was a big, seeker of freedom. And the ships was like, wow. And how it came about was funny because a girl came into the gym who owned a beauty school and she had 35 girls beauticians that she was training over like 9 months or a year. And she wanted to do a kind of health and wellness module. And she said, can you train these girls? And every time someone comes into the job as the manager, I'd pass it on, But this was the first one. I said, I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
So I trained these 35 girls. But I asked the lady, I said, what do these girls do, when they qualify? And she said, some go to work as employees in clinics and some go working on cruise ships. And I was like, cruise ships? And she gave me the card of the number of the recruiter she had, and she was still friends with. 3 months later, I was working on a cruise ship, and that was really cool because I was teaching seminars. Like even though it was health and wellness related, it was ultimately a sales job. So we had 4,000 guests a week, and I was teaching seminars to hundreds of people every day. And my job was to make the seminar so good that people came for a one-to-one with me, and then I'd do other tests and different things, and then say, you need this, you need this, you need this, and some of those things they needed, which they did, was the products we had. So, very quickly I realized this is a sales job more than a fitness job. And I just loved it. And I loved speaking on stage and I felt comfortable up on stage. And within 3 months, I was just settling into the ship and the boss from Miami came on and he said, we're moving you to a new ship. And I said, why? And he said, well, you're actually number one in sales. You were at the top in sales. And I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And they moved me to a brand new ship. And to get a maiden voyage on a new ship was the thing, right? Because that's where all the money was as well, because everyone was going on this new ship. So it was a big honor. And I loved it. It was great. But I spent a year doing that and I had a great sales record. I was at the top out of 150 ships. I was at the top in sales. So they offered me a new contract. And they said, any ship you want in the world, you can have it. We'll give you the maximum commission. You have a girlfriend, she can come and work also. Like they want people who could sell. So I signed the contract and I was going to be going around Russia, Japan and Alaska and all these things. And then I got a gift of Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the book, Robert Kiyosaki. And I read it and I was like, I don't want to work for money forever. I want money working for me. I don't want to be an employee. And I already didn't like people telling me what to do anyway. And there was loads of stuff that happened. I remember when I was smashing targets, they used to give us incentives and the manager took the incentives away. And I said, what are you doing? And she goes, you're hitting them. You're getting too much time off. You're hitting all the incentives. I was like, that's the point. So I hated that whole system and everything. So in 2010, then I made a decision. I called Miami and I said, please cancel my contract. I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to work for myself. And that's what I did. I just said yes first, told everyone, and then figured it out, And from then I linked up. I had met some guys in the gym from years ago and they were doing direct sales business, network marketing things. And I was like, this is an easy entry, right? There's not a big cost. And I started doing different things like that. But I knew I had been good on stage on the ships. So I started running my own events. I'd book a hotel in Limerick and then I just announce it and then invite friends and family and just start running my own events. And I was passionate about mindset. I just loved mindset and again, seeking freedom. And then one company I linked up with, I ended up kind of playing a big role with them. And they were in about 9 or 10 countries. And their plan was to be in 50, 100 countries. And over the next 8 years, we opened 50 countries. And I traveled a lot with that company and did a lot of the sales meeting, a lot of the business development, business strategy meetings. And I built a sales organization myself. So I had a couple of hundred leaders, but we resulted in about 20, 25,000 customers in 8 countries. So I always say I was coaching before I was a coach. I had to build teams. I had to make sales, you know, so I was doing thousands of meetings, speaking on stage all over the world, you know, at 26, 27 years of age. It was pretty cool. And by 2014, I loved doing it, but I knew there was something. I was selling someone else's stuff. I was selling someone else's vision. And that's when I decided to get into coaching. And I love the philosophy of asking questions and pulling things out of you, out of people. And so in 2014, I did a coaching diploma, and that started the next stage, which was I'm still building the teams and the business. I was still chasing the financial freedom, and I loved entrepreneurship. But I loved mindset. I loved freedom. I loved becoming autonomous, figuring out your mind. You know, my mind was overactive all the time, thinking. You know, how can I find mental and emotional freedom as well as time and financial? And yeah, I've been on that journey since. And it came by 2019. I was like, okay, it's time to go all in on me. You know, like I had a great coaching business at that stage, but I was still doing other things. And that's when I said, you know, I don't want to sell anybody else's stuff anymore. My products are good. My services are good. My clients are growing. I'm speaking still all over the world. And I just went all out on my own way. And it's the best thing I ever did because I can rely on myself to deliver. Whereas when you have a third party, you can't rely on the quality or. So that's kind of the origin story. That's how it started basically. And here we are.
Excellent. Do you know what's so funny? I actually wanted to work on cruise ships as well. So I don't know. There must be, I never did it now, but it's great to hear someone who did.
Yeah. I mean, and I think if I had went back, I'd still be on them.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of felt if I didn't get off now, because it becomes your world and you come back home and everything has moved on, but you're in a different place, you know, so.
Interesting. The next question, I guess, is the Irish identity. And that's why I guess I'm resonating with you because, you know, you're an Irish coach, whereas normally you have, you know, I guess different, you might be American and whatnot, but how has your Irish identity, I guess, shaped you?
Yeah, for me, even my whole brand, I suppose, you know, people, the kind of feedback I always get from events and podcasts and YouTubes and stuff, people say, oh, it's very refreshing. You're very straight, no bullshit approach.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think that's the Irish in us, you know, like we want it straight, you know, we want it real. Like we're good at having the crack and we're good at bullshitting if we have to, but we want it straight and we recognize when someone's bullshitting us, you know, because we're in that culture our whole life. We know when someone's off tilt a bit, you know, so, you know, I'm so proud to be Irish. I love being Irish. I think the Irish accent has helped a lot, even on the ships, you know, when I was smashing the sales, I always say being Irish was a big part of it. And when I say being Irish, yes, it's the likability and everything, but I think it's our natural connection and charisma to people. Like anyone that comes to Ireland, they always say, oh, it's so welcoming. And you're so, like, I think generally, like, for sure there's assholes everywhere, but generally, like, we welcome people. We're, you know, we're warm to people. Yeah. Oftentimes we're nicer to strangers than we are to ourselves and to our, you know, our own people. So I just love being Irish. I love the mentality as much as we have challenges with it. I feel like, you know, the bigger the battle, the bigger the glory. And I think us Irish, we have had plenty of battles and we've loads of battles mentally within ourselves and lots of traumas and limiting beliefs and, you know, self-image issues. And I think it's been overcoming those issues that's made me able to help so many other people, you know, because I've been, again, someone who's been seeking how do we figure out this? You know, I believe as a coach, you can only take someone as far as you've gone yourself. And, you know, I've gone far and I continue to go far. And I think that's just a lot about the Irishness in that, you know, and just a direct approach and not the hype and the big show, but like, can we back it up? Can we get to what's real? And you know, I just love it. I love being Irish and I love being from Limerick as well. I'm very proud of where I'm from, you know.
Yeah. Oh, excellent. Before we go into maybe just the coaching specifics, Jim Rohn is someone that we talked about sort of off air and someone that I really loved as well. And I think he was a bit of an inspiration for you. So if you can maybe tell me a little bit more.
So I came off the ships and I had these 2 mentors that I had met in the gym. I was very lucky. I met these 2 gentlemen. They didn't know each other, 2 different guys, 2 different businesses. But I remember one of them, you know, I came off the ship. I'm like, now I'm looking to create my life for freedom, you know? So I'm reaching out to people, making calls, can we go for a coffee? And I remember even the cafe when I met this guy, his name was Eddie, and he gave me a disc. And it was Jim Rohn. It was a Jim Rohn CD. I was like, okay. He said, you have to listen to this guy. And I was like, all right. And it was How to Build Your Network Marketing Business. It was a 45-minute clip. And I swear I've listened to it 10,000 times. Like to this day, it's one of the greatest talks of all time. And when I just listened to Jim Rohn, I just felt like that's me. Like I just knew that's me. I didn't know I was going to speak on stage all over the world. I didn't know, And even when he was talking about, he mentions God and the Bible and stuff. And back then I was very uncomfortable with that stuff, you know, and now you were at an event last week and I'm kind of talking about it and I'm like, oh my God, like I knew back then that marriage of business and life, you know, and personal and professional. There was just something about Jim and effortless. You could tell he walked the path. You could tell he did the work, and just the way he put things, his own words. And that's why now I feel I have my own words and my own phrases. And I think it's so cool. It kind of feels like I've come around to that, you know, and I'm so grateful. But it's guys like him that they were my fuel. They were my North Star. Like I learned so many philosophies. When you're in your 20s, you don't know what philosophies you have. You don't know what values you have in terms of business and success and mindset. It was Jim Rohn laid those for me, you know. And yeah, he's just, for me, there's only one Jim Rohn, like, and everybody today, like so many, you can see where they got it from. You know, Jim was the man, you know.
Yeah. And also like their universal truths that he speaks, exactly. Like even with AI and all these things coming, like it's still
the truth. Yeah. And that's what I think I loved the most, was he was speaking truth. And I think we all have to find someone that we can borrow from and that we can mirror and that we can try to emulate, and in terms of character and values. And again, that's what I love. You can tell it's real when you listen to him. And that's the difference. You know, a lot of guys you listen to and tell are just memorizing, which is fine. It's borrowed knowledge, I always say. It's the start. But knowing comes from living, from walking the path. And with him, you can tell it's real. And that's what I think is the authenticity. And again, that's why I think as Irish, we have that naturalness. I think people can feel that. And that makes us attractive to people, because people want what's real. Because so much of this stuff within ourselves is illusion. We don't know what's real in ourselves. So when we see real, when we see truth, we can recognize it, you know. So yeah, Jim is just, I mean, some of the greatest bars ever dropped on stage, you know, like just the way he put things were just, and I'm sure he got it from others too. Like he's learned from Earl Schoaf and he learned from other people. And there was Earl Nightingale and there was all these other, James Allen back in the day, like, you know, there was Dr. Maxwell Mall, Psycho-Cybernetics. I'm sure he was borrowing from them. Like everyone's borrowing. Neville Goddard, he was listening to probably, just Reverend Ike. People borrow from everyone. There's nothing new under the sun, right? And so, but it's just, how do we deliver that? We find these people who can deliver messages in a way that hits different.
Yeah.
And Jim was one of them.
So true. I guess just the coaching stuff, like you're coaching a lot of people both in business and life. Like, is there any common mistakes that you see that your clients maybe over the years have, I guess?
It's interesting because it depends on your level of awareness, right? So my level of awareness has shifted a lot in the last 3 years. So I often talk about, now I had this awakening a few years ago, and it is awakening because I woke up. So I was teaching mainstream personal development like everybody. And then I realized 3 years ago, I had this incredible experience, and I realized, wait, we don't have to learn more and get more and have more and do more. We have to let go of everything that's not us. And that was a huge shift. Like, it's more about letting go of what's in the way, letting go of what we've collected that's not really us. So we're left with what is. So we're left with truth. And so this, I call this Back to Me. So as you know, my business, two of my programs are Back to Me, my podcast Back to Me, and my book is Back to Me. So in the book, I have a chapter called Everything is Perfect. So when you ask your question, you know, what's the mistakes? Yes, there's mistakes on a lower level, but on the highest level of awareness, everything is perfect. You know, everything is perfect. And when you have that philosophy that everything is happening for me, not to me, everything is perfect. You know, you can't be found if you don't get lost. It's a different philosophy. It's a lot more acceptance and surrender. And then you become more curious. Instead of, when you feel like you've made a mistake, you're in a judgment state, a judgment mindset, and you're busy running commentary, and you're missing the now, you're missing the message, you're missing the truth and the lesson. Whereas when you get into this, everything is perfect, everything is as is. What does it mean for me? What's it telling me? What can I learn from it? Where should I go? What should I do? Now it's a different energy. So yes, on a low level, you can make mistakes, but at the highest level, there is no mistakes. And the only question is, like, you are going to learn the lesson. Is it sooner or later? Is it through joy or through pain? You know, how do you learn it? And that's what the free will part is, I believe. So the biggest mistake is thinking we shouldn't make any mistakes. The biggest problem is thinking we shouldn't have any problems. Like, problems are a sign of life. You know, another chapter in the book is your chaos is your communication. So to me, everything is your communication, you know.
Yeah, and I've loads of questions on these little sayings that you have just in a little bit. The other one was really, you have lots of unconventional advice, I guess, that goes against maybe the mainstream. Is there any that sort of come to mind?
That's the first time I've heard it said back to me like that. But that is, I guess, true. I do have unconventional. I never thought I'd have unconventional advice. I always say I don't give advice either as well. I like to shine a light on things, and it's up to people to take it. I always say I don't want to convince anyone. I just want to put it out there and you see how it feels. Anything unconventional, I would say there could be quite a few bits. I'm sure you have some in your mind. But I mean, one of them would be, awareness over discipline. That's a big one for me. I think discipline is a sleep state. Like, you have to force yourself to do something if you need discipline. Like, I don't think life is about forcing yourself to get up early, save money, do all these things. I think the purposes of life is to wake up so you can have a clarity and awareness, so you can choose from your truth, from your highest good and your greatest joy. I think that's the mission. Like, why would you want to have discipline for the rest of your life? It's miserable. So that might be unconventional. Discipline can serve you for a time. It can serve you for a purpose, but it shouldn't be the end goal. The end goal should be awareness, because awareness solves everything. So we're in a sleep state. We're all on a spectrum of asleep and awake. And some areas of our life we're very much awake, and some areas we're asleep. And a lot of times where the suffering is where we're asleep. And if we can just, again, what I do as a coach and as a mentor, it's a kind of my brand is like a Trojan horse, right? Because people think, oh, he's corporate or he does high performance and sales. But I'm always coming with this truth of alignment, of clarity, of awareness. And that's what I love to talk about, as you know, more than anything. That's, even when I'm talking business, it comes from this place. So awareness is key. Everyone's trying to tell you to think positive. There is no positive. Like, everything is as it is. Like, when you label something positive or negative, it's a desire for control. Like, you want to control it. Like, negative is not your preference. If it's positive, it is your preference. And there's some things you might say are collective preferences, which is fine. But again, you spend your whole life trying to control what's good and bad and positive and negative. You're losing out on so much more of the nowness, which is everything is as it is. Like, who am I? Where am I going? What do I want? What's my way forward? What's best for me? How do I get in alignment? How do I serve? What's the bigger plan for me? I think sometimes the worst thing that can happen is you can get what you want, because getting what you want is perceived success. But getting closer to your bigger mission, to God's plan for you, and that's nothing got to do with being religious, but God's plan, the reason you're born, like the things you do best with the least amount of effort, getting closer to that, I think, allows you to open up and receive way more than just getting what you think you want. So there's a few different things I think might be unconventional, but that's just something off the top of my head.
Yeah. And you always talk about getting into receiving mode as well. And genuinely, like, this year, I almost feel that. And you look back maybe in your 20s and it's like push, push, push.
Yeah.
Whereas now maybe I'm seeing that. Can you maybe tell me a little bit about that? Because I'm fascinated by that.
Yeah, so that might be another unconventional thing. I don't like the word manifestation per se. I prefer receiving mode, getting into receiving mode, because I realize we don't have to get it. Like, even Alan Watts said that. Like, as soon as you try to get it, you lose it. And I've experienced that firsthand. I've had experiences where I've gotten into a state of bliss, of consciousness, of awareness, and my mind kicks in with thought, and I try to get back to that, and I can't. And then I realize, okay, I can't, and I just settle back into myself, and boom, I have it again. It's like, oh, we can't go and get it. We have to allow ourselves to receive it. And again, back to me, we have to let go of everything that's in the way of it. So if you let go of everything that's not truth, what are you left with? Truth. So you have to let go of everything that's in the way. So there's a couple of steps to getting into receiving mode. You don't just say, I want to be in receiving mode. Like, how do you get to receiving mode? Well, it starts with, you have to let go. You have to identify and recognize everything that's not you, everything that you've collected, the burdens, the doubts, the stories, the beliefs. You have to acknowledge all the stuff you've collected. You have to acknowledge the trauma. You have to acknowledge the pain. You have to acknowledge the hurt. You have to acknowledge all that journey. And you have to identify what you have to let go of and what's really you. And then you let go of that. And you start to heal that. And there's different ways of doing that, modalities to do that, and just working through it. When you've done that, you've created some space now, because you were full with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And now you've healed, you've acknowledged, you recognize that's not me. And then you let it go. And now you have space. And then you start with that space, you start to seek your truth, your vision. What's my vision? So that's another unconventional one. Like, I think goals are a waste of time in the big picture. Goals should only facilitate the vision. Goals are pixels, little pixels, to make the screen of the vision clearer, the picture. They're puzzle pieces in the whole picture. Goals and targets should facilitate the vision. The vision is your North Star. That's all that matters. So when you get clear on the vision of what do I truly want with my imagination and my heart, so not just what I think I want superficially, but like I can feel it in my body. I can touch it, taste it, hear it, smell it, feel it. That's what I truly want. And that version of want, I believe, is already yours, because that's why you can feel it. You can't imagine yourself without it almost. So it's already yours. So now you have the space, now you create the vision. The mistake most people make is they try to create the vision without the healing and letting go, which means a lot of the stuff they think they want is illusion. It's not what they really want. It's just what they've been told or they've convinced themselves they want. So the healing is so important. The letting go is so important first. But then the vision from truth is like, I can see, I can touch it, I can taste it, I can smell it, I can feel it. It just feels like that's where I belong. That's who I am. Like when I listen to Jim Rohn, that's me. That's me. I just knew it. And now I'm living a version of that, my version of that. But when I first heard him, I just knew in my heart it was already done. It's just, how do I get there? What have I to let go of? What have I to, take action on? So once you do that, now your brain is seeking that. And it's important. You feel it in your body. You're matching that frequency, that vibration. You're moving, you're being pulled. It's magnetic. And anyone listening knows they've been pulled to things before. From there, then you receive insights. Okay, so when you have clarity, when you're seeking with intention, now you can get insights. And we know the brain learns through insights. There's a global shift in the brain when you get an insight. And you're like, oh, that's a good idea. And maybe I should do that. And then I'll do this. And maybe I should do this course or write this book or go to this event. And then once you trust that insight, it's called inspired action, because it's coming from the inside, from the vision, from the truth, right? So once you've let go, you've cleared away the debris, you've created a space, then you get the insight. Then you trust yourself to take the action. So that's part of getting to know yourself. And that's a lot of the work I do, as get to know yourself. You trust yourself. That's the inspired action. Like, you don't question it. Should I do it? No, that came to me. I got to trust that. And then you get into receiving mode, because even the insights are receiving mode, and the insights move you towards what your mission is, your purpose is, your vision, your truth. And that's how you go from getting what you think you want to receiving things you didn't even know you wanted. So like, don't focus on magic when there's miracles out here. Like, we want to create magic, but we can receive miracles if we can get into receiving mode. And that's the biggest difference. And that's the path, I think, for what I've seen.
Yeah.
That works. And it has worked, and it does work.
Yeah. I think the vision for me was definitely a sort of a light bulb moment, whereas, I will set a lot of goals, but then like the long-term vision, and like you say, don't think of your future, think from it, like sort of bring it forward.
Exactly.
So, and I even think maybe 2-3 years ago there was a vision, but it was maybe it was the materialistic type thing, whereas now it's, like you said, it's almost like a blank canvas where you smell, feel, touch it.
Yeah.
And you just let your imagination go wild and have different iterations of it.
And the more you've done the work, it adds up, it clears up, and it adds up. You get deeper into what you want. So at first you think, I don't even know what I want. What's my vision? And that's because you're so used to seeing the block, and you're so used to not having the space. So some people say, I don't know what my vision is. And then they give up on it, whereas you have to do the work consistently. And you're right. I always say that, don't think of it, think from it. We have to get clear, and we pull it into the now. That's the inspired action as well. So, from a business point of view, if you had 10x the success or 10x the income, like, how would your day look then? How would you dress? Would you be in better shape? Would you go to bed earlier? Would you have better conversations? Would you have better network, better relationships? Of course you would. So how can we don't think of that future, think from that and bring that into the now? And now you're taking inspired action. Now you get into receiving mode from that place. Like, to me, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Like, it just, so yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a better mindset than fake it till you make it, because it's a sort of cliche, but I think, from your future is.
Yeah. And it's not even the future, because there is no future in some sense. It's from your awake self. What does the awake version of you look like? Where you make choices freely, where you know yourself and you trust yourself freely. Like, what's that version look like? Oh, we don't even ask that question. We're thinking, what do I want? But what does the awake me like? When I'm fully awake, fully aware, choosing effortlessly, what does that look like? And I'm not there yet, but that's the work, that's the journey. Like, that's what I feel, that's what we should be seeking, And again, goals just support. I'm not saying don't set goals. I'm saying goals help you maintain the vision. So for example, if I want to be fit and strong as an identity, I set a goal to run a marathon as a goal that supports the vision of being strong, fit, and healthy. Of someone who seeks discomfort, part of my vision. Someone who leans into discomfort. Someone who wants to say yes to things, figure them out, and do them even when they don't believe they can do them. That's part of the vision. Well, this little goal feeds that vision. It's the puzzle piece in the big picture. So, financial targets, are part of a goal towards the bigger vision. But a lot of people just focus on the goal, and the goal is the outcome, instead of having the vision, which is the mothership, which is what we want. That's the North Star. And that vision pulls us. So instead of constantly pushing all the time uphill, swimming against the current, we can be pulled. And it doesn't mean it's not hard. It doesn't mean challenges don't come. It doesn't mean there's going to be times you're upside down, inside out. But when you have a vision, you get back on track. You get anchored into something grounded that grounds you. And you have a home to go to. This is where I want to be. You don't get lost in the ether, pulled around, blown around like a kite in the wind. The vision is key. And then the vision is fed with values too. A lot of people making decisions that aren't for their highest good because they're not clear on the vision and they don't have the values. So that's some of the work you have to do on yourself first. That's why everything starts with you. Some of the most successful people I coach, or even the most successful people I see that don't get coaching, they're lost and they're trying to succeed and they're trying to win in business, but they don't have the clarity at all. And what are you doing? You're like, you can take years off of this journey. Just get some clarity, get some strategy, and get some accountability. And that's what I offer my clients: clarity, strategy, accountability. We can't just chaos in our heads. Like, how are we supposed to figure it out? We can't. Our brain goes to where it always goes because that's our reflex. That's what it wants to do. So how can we elevate ourselves out of ourselves to see things from a different perspective? And when I work with a client, that's what happens in the first session. And they're like, oh my God, I see things totally differently. After one, it's there already. It's waiting for us. We don't have to figure out how to do it. We just need to be shown the way, and then we can do it. And everything is waiting for us to do that,
Yeah. I guess quirky routines that you do, like I know we talk a lot about running, which I don't know, is there anything outside of that you feel sort of helps maybe fuel your creativity?
Yeah, I always say motion changes emotion. Like, you have to move your ass, every day. You have to move your ass, as simple as that. Obviously, the obvious things that might be obvious to everybody, but when you're in the space, when you're in that kind of seeking freedom, you have to breathe, you have to stretch, you have to move, you have to lift, you have to connect. These are all things, like physical things, obviously, just running, strength, lifting heavy things, ice baths are fun. They became so popular. Like, when something becomes too popular, people go against it. But, I enjoy an ice bath. I think it's good fun. It's a good challenge. And for me, it's one of the only ways I can get my mind to truly quiet. Because when you're in that ice bath, you're only breathing. There's only one thing you're focused on. And I think creating things like that, where you can go and, like, when you have a strong mind, you have to find ways around that. Like, we'll give you strategies and different processes to do it, but sometimes you just got to put yourself physically in a situation. That's why movement is so great. But yeah, other routines and things, I think there's no perfect routine, right? I think you have to find your way. Like, again, it comes back to the vision. Who do you want to be? What kind of life do you want to have? What's important to you? That's the most important. Like, find your way. Like, I always tell my clients, I coach a lot of coaches, like, on how to set up their coaching business, how to grow their coaching business. And the biggest thing is create your lane. Like, you have to create your lane. We all have a gift. Like, nobody has my experiences and my understanding and my way of saying things, but no one has yours. And we have to trust ourselves. And that was the thing because I was trying to figure out, am I the entrepreneur? Am I the coach? Am I the speaker? Like, when I was early 30s, trying to figure out, who am I? And I realized, no, this is like, I have to be business or I have to be personal. And I'm like, but I'm seeking both. Like, so why can't I, create my lane? And I have, and it's been the best thing I ever did. And I'm in receiving mode constantly in my lane. And that's what I encourage everybody to do, is to find their lane, find their morning routine, find their night routine. Like, for sure, there's common truths. Once, that's the beautiful thing about truth. It needs no interpretation. It's truth is truth. So find what works for you. But in terms of routines, I like creating rituals. I think it's good. But I think the mission, again, is the freedom to be aware. What season are you in? If you're in a season where the health isn't great, you need to go all in. You need to be unsociable. I call it unsociable level of activity. You need to get that for that season. If your relationship needs attention, that's your season. If your job, your business, your finances, that's your season. So don't try and be perfectly balanced week to week. Like, go all in where you need to go all in. When a client starts with me, I call it a season of me. And part of season of me is a season of no. You got to be willing to say no to some things. Everyone's trying to do everything all the time, and you can't. And that's why New Year's resolutions don't work, because people get distracted or trying to chase not 2 rabbits, 6 rabbits. You've no chance of catching any of them. So yeah, I think the awareness is the key, and then you'll know yourself. You'll know what season you're in, and you'll know this needs my attention now. This needs my commitment now, and that's going to change through life.
Yeah.
And I think there's great freedom in that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, I have to do this and I have to do that. That's not life.
Yeah. No, very good. The rapid fire questions. So, like I said, you have a lot of sayings, and I know maybe some of them are from you or from others. I'm not too sure, but I just want to go through them and maybe just expand upon them. And I think probably the first one is curiosity leads to clarity. And I just love that one because my first call with you said that. And then the following day, another mentor said something very similar, which was confusion leads to clarity. So I was like, okay, there's no coincidence there. So like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so
to you?
That's actually the main reason I wrote this book back to me, is because, that's literally the main reason, because I'm saying so many the last few years of my phrases, and I wanted that written down. Selfishly, I was like, I want that written down because like that's impactful. And you don't know where they come from. I think it's receiving mode where these come from. Like you're in the zone, you're in flow, you're doing what you're meant to do, and then you receive these insights and ways of articulating things. And I remember this curiosity leads to clarity. I don't even know where it came from. There's so many, but I don't know where they came from, but it's just curiosity leads to clarity, clarity leads to confidence. Like most people lack confidence because they lack clarity. Within even today, people have got some clarity on something and like they feel already more confident. Like this is what I need to do because they have clarity. But how do you get to clarity? Well, curiosity leads to clarity. And people stop being curious. They stop seeking. And it's as old as time. Seek and you shall find. Ask and you shall receive. Knock and shall be open. But people stop seeking. And, for me, I've been a seeker my whole life and I'm still seeking. And that's why I still find answers, because I'm seeking. So, another way I say it is, conclusions close doors, questions open doors. And that's all part of curiosity to clarity. Most people make so many conclusions about themselves. They're constantly making, this is the way it is. This is the way I am. This is who I am. This is how it is. I'm just not this. I'm just not that. Like I'm not a running person. I'm not a good with money person. I'm not a good get up early person. No, you're just the opposite of that is what you are. And that's your choice, not the way you haven't arrived there. Like your choices have brought you here. So curiosity to clarity is a very simple thing that immediately hits people. Like, I need to ask more questions. I need to stop making. When you make conclusions, the more conclusions you make, the less alive you're becoming, because you're condemning yourself to stay the same. You're becoming more predictable. Like, think about that. Every time you make a conclusion, you're saying, I'm securing myself here, staying the same. This is who I am. And people get stuck and they can't move out of the bad relationship. They can't move from a bad relationship they can't turn the bad into the good when they could. They have a good one. But because they keep making conclusions, they don't even question, how can we make it better? People in business don't even question, how can we do it? It's all conclusions. The door's closed. No, let's open the door. Let's ask new questions. Let's be curious. Curiosity is to clarity. And you have to be a student. I call it being a student of yourself. When you're a student of yourself, you're curious, then you're going to lead to clarity, and that leads to confidence, and then confidence makes you consistent. I love alliteration. Yeah. I love the C's. So yeah, that's just one of them.
That's a really good one. Chaos is your communication. You've mentioned it a few times.
Yeah,
maybe
that's a big one. I can't wait for people to read that chapter in the book, because a lot of times everyone's judging. There's so many levels to it. On the simplest level, I remember when I was home. And my mother told me someone fell and broke their arm. And Jesus, isn't that awful? She fell and she hurt her arm. And I said, I don't know where it came from. But I said, life happens when you're alive. Like, it's not so bad. Like, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. But it's not the worst thing. Like, life happens when you're alive. Like, the guy in the ground didn't fall today. Right? So, everything is communication. Like, pay more attention. Look where you're going. That's a very simple thing. But when the bad boss comes into your life, who's an asshole, like that's chaos for you, but that's communication. It might be telling you to move. It might be telling you to look within, find some new answers, to be curious. The bad relationship is your communication. I always say that the bad boss or the bad relationship comes to activate you. It's trying to wake you up, because your spirit wants the awareness. It wants to evolve. It wants to ascend. And this humanness, we're keeping us in a low vibration, feeling crappy, feeling shitty, and we're having eaten and drinking too much, and we're doing all this stuff as a solution to the feeling. And it doesn't need to be that way. And you don't realize everything is happening for you, not to you. Everything is communication. Every relationship you've been in has been communicating to you, so you can become who you're meant to become. So you can evolve, grow, develop. So instead of judging every situation that's bad, every asshole that comes into your life, excuse the language, but you know, what's it telling me? What's the message? I always say the things you don't like is just contrast. It shows you what you don't like. So say thank you for it. But we don't learn the lesson. We just keep commenting on what we don't like. If we realize our chaos is the communication, instantly it's, what's the communication? What's it telling me? Is there truth in this? Is there a message for me? Even if you have an argument with your partner all the time, okay, I mightn't have liked how they said it, but is there truth in it? Right? So your chaos is your communication. Like, how beautiful is that? Like, it's unbelievable. That means now everything that happens, I'm not poor me or I can't believe this happened. It's like, what's the message? Like, what's the message? And when you realize that everything is in your favor, that there's a higher purpose for you, that you're meant to go towards your highest good and your greatest joy, you stop judging things that you don't like. Again, it's control. I don't like the way they are. I don't like the way she said it. I don't like the way he said it, did it. It's all control. Control is the most addictive drug in the world. So, it's a whole shift in energy. It's a shift in philosophy that's instant. And again, this is why I have to get this book out, because I think people will read this and be like, that actually makes sense. And maybe they'll have way less burdens,
Yeah.
So that's another one I like a lot. Yeah.
Excellent. The other one was, I think we discussed that already. Everything is happening for you, not to you, which is another great one. The healing is in the feeling as well.
Yeah.
I really like that, because just to maybe give some context, like sometimes you would say, like, if you are angry or sad about something, actually just sit in it for a while. Like, don't try and maybe distract yourself. But
yeah, I mean, we all, like, again, the drugs, the food, the drink, the sex, the complaining, the bitching, the moaning, the shopping, they're all solutions to feeling. They're our version of solutions. They're not the problem, they're the solution. We do all these things because we're in this, again, the world wants us in this distraction mode. It wants us outside of ourselves. That's why you have to go back to me, back to truth, right? But we do all these things unconsciously to get away from the feeling, because the feeling, we all do it because the feeling is so, give me this to make me feel good. Give me this person. That's why people get, dating and apps and everything. Just give me the attention, validation that way. People shop a lot. Some people are shopping all the time. Some people are drinking. They can't go without drinking every night or every weekend. Or I have to have a few glasses of wine. Or I need my coffee. I need my coffee. Like, why do you need anything? Why are you medicating? You don't realize you're medicating. And I do it. That's why I go off coffee twice a year. I just did a 12-week run with no coffee, because I don't want anything to be the boss of me. And there are things that still are the boss of me sometimes. Like, we're not perfect here. That's the humanness, but that's the journey. There's no arriving. But every now and again, let's try and take charge of ourselves. So, that's the challenge with all the things are, the world helps us distract ourselves. The world keeps us outside of ourselves. That's why it's so hard to do it, because our brain doesn't want to do it, doesn't want to sit in it, feel it. And the world helps us move away. It keeps us distracted, scrolling, movies. Everything is flashing lights all the time. And Black Friday, go shop. Everyone, how many people are dealing with their problems this weekend? No, they're all thinking, what's the deal I can get? Like, they don't want to heal from the inside. They want to distract from the outside. It's all about the outside. And that's Black Friday today, and then it's Christmas. All outside. And then January comes and you still, I don't like the inside. And the outside, the Black Friday deals didn't help me solve the inside. Who knew? And the Christmas gifts didn't solve the outside. So we have to, and that's why having someone with you for that support and accountability is massive. That's the clarity from someone outside. And then the healing is in the feeling. You got to sit in it. And when you sit in it, you keep your heart open. Your heart has the power to transmute everything. So when you sit in it, and I do it too, when I fear that comes, I just sit and I go into the heart, and the heart can boom. I've seen it. The heart goes boom. It goes from darkness to light when you get into the heart. But when you stay in the head, it's chaos, and there will be chaos, and your brain will try and get you out of there, and that's why it'll distract you, and the world will support you getting you out of there, and that's why it takes such bravery and courage to go back to me. And that's the whole idea. That's the whole mission. And that's why, it helps if you've some belief in something bigger than yourself, because it's hard to do on your own. It helps if you have a coach or a mentor to guide you and support you, and who knows what they're doing and who can take you. And it helps that you set up your life so that you can support you getting to know yourself, being a student of yourself. Because when you do that, now everything is in favor of you moving to waking up and freeing yourself of these burdens. And a lot of the burdens we have, we carry them around like screensavers. We don't even know they're there anymore. You know, like most people, their screensaver after a week, they don't even know. They put a fresh picture and they're like, and then after a week, they don't even notice it. That's your burdens. They're all over you. You don't even realize anymore. Like there's levels of lightness in you that you don't even know you can have yet. You don't even know how light you can be because the burdens are so familiar. They're me. But they're not. It's just you're just asleep. And when you can wake up, that's life is just like you move through the world differently. And one of the biggest things I get from clients all the time, it's one of my favorite things to hear, is when they tell me that they've met someone they haven't seen in a long time, and that person says, "You seem different." Like that's amazing. Like that's so cool. And the reason is they've sat in that feeling. Like you have the bravest thing you can do, it says it in the book, is walk the path back to yourself. You have to walk through the fire. And it is fire. But, you know, it hurts a lot more avoiding it, you know, because the other fires are going to come. But this fire towards yourself, it's one of the bravest things you can do. But it's the only thing that's going to give you freedom, is going back to you. There's nothing outside of yourself that's going to give you the feeling you're looking for. And the crazy thing is the feeling is yours already. You have it already. You've just lost it. You've lost a connection to it. You can't see it. You can't recognize it because you're outside of yourself. You're living in need mode, spend mode, distraction mode. You're living outside of yourself where the world wants you, a consumer. Because when you're back to you, guess what you need? Nothing. Because you love yourself, you accept yourself, you accept others, you're not trying to force, you don't need, you can still have everything. That's the great thing. You can have everything, but you'll need nothing. That's a different thing.
Yeah, excellent.
It's a long answer. I go off sometimes.
This is another mind-blowing one, really. You can't be found if you don't get lost.
Yeah.
I really like that. What does that mean?
That's again coming back to everything is perfect. We're always trying to create perfection. We're always trying to make everything right. It's okay to be lost. I learned that as well. We used to judge being lost. I'm terribly judgmental on myself. Like, you know, I'm sure a lot of people listening can relate. We're perfectionists sometimes. You want everything perfect and we criticize ourselves. We are our biggest critic. Like, you know, and there's a term in psychology called cognitive dysfunction, where objectively you're having one result, but you believe like you're having a good result objectively, but subjectively, I'm not where I need to be. I'm not doing enough. It's a real thing. It's something I have for sure. So I totally forgot my train of thought. What was it?
You can't be found.
Can't be found. That's right. I just went last in the cognitive function. So it's okay. That's my point. It's like, why don't I give myself credit? Why don't I believe? Why don't I take? And some people have that as an extreme. They won't do anything. They won't even go to a new class because they're afraid of they're afraid of making a mistake. You know, they won't change job. They won't move country. And a few years ago, when all the chaos was in the world, people changed job much easier because there was so much chaos. It was easier to get out of the boat because no one was looking, right? Like it was just easier to get out of the boat because there was so much chaos. When people don't want to step a foot wrong when everyone's looking at them because they're so afraid of going wrong or getting lost. But you can't be found if you don't get lost. Like you can't be found if you don't. So get lost. Yeah. You know, just take the step, just move, and everything, your chaos, your communication, you're going to be moved towards that. Once you're seeking truth, you're going to find your way back. So I think it helps take the pressure off people. Like it's okay. Like everything is perfect. If I haven't made the right decision, there's no such thing because I'm going to get to where I'm supposed to get to because everything is happening for me. So this only applies though if you're really being a student of yourself, if you're working on getting back to you, because you can be getting lost all the time and not seeking that clarity. You're going to keep moving further away from yourself, and it's going to take much longer, and you have to suffer a lot more than if you can. So the sooner you can realize it's okay if I've been lost, but how do I be found? How do I wake up? How do I find my mission, my truth? And it's okay if you get a bit lost, if you make the wrong decision, if you end up in this relationship, everything is there to activate you. Remember, the bad relationship you're in is communication. So it's okay. Like, oh, wow, it's okay. Like that boss or that coworker, or that drama, it wants to move you towards where you're supposed to be. So allow yourself to be moved. Like you want to be with the current. And if you feel like you're against the current, you know, if you've ever been in the ocean, you've been against the current, it's scary. And that's why people are scared. That's why they're eating too much, drinking too much, doing everything else too much, because they're against the current of life, against the current of life, against the current of truth. So the mission is, it's okay, you can't be found if you don't get lost, but let's get back on that.
Yeah. And the last one is, and for me, this has been a bit of a game changer. what's simple for you is mind blowing to others. So, I mean, sometimes when
Yeah.
you go on stage, you sort of realize that like not everyone knows what you
Yeah.
know type thing. But yeah, what does it mean to you?
Yeah. I mean, and that's not something I can take credit for. You know, the curiosity, clarity, you know, they were from my truth. But like that one, I'm sure someone said it to me even before. I think that's and there's a lot of these that like we're never the first to say anything, right? Someone else has always said it. Um, but yeah, there's just so much. Remind me of that one again. You
Yeah,
said
so what's simple to
what's
you
simple
is
to you is
mind
mind
blowing.
blowing. The reason it for me, what happened was because it happened with the book, you know, because I've been teaching with the book so much 2 years now that I was like, oh, it seems quite obvious. And someone was, but it's not obvious. Like, and I knew this from years ago, like what's simple is mind blowing, because I do it with clients all the time who say, should I launch my own product? Should I write my own book? Should I put this out? And they're like, but it's so obvious, but it's not actually. And the other thing with clients, people is they don't realize that the hurdles they've overcome already, other people can't get over. And I think we all have a mission. We all have a purpose with that, that all our pain can be turned into power. All our skills can be used to serve. All our mastery can help us move other people forward. And you know, that's what our mission is. Like we have to turn our pain to power. And what's obvious to you is not going to be obvious to someone else because they won't see it in that frame. They won't see it the way you phrase it. They might not have approached it the way you approach it. So yeah, I mean, I think everyone has to be reminded of that every day. Like we don't realize, sometimes we think, what, there's nothing special about me. There's nothing special in my life, but there's a lot of specialness in your life, you know, and it's because you're so familiar with it. You take it for granted. And I had this with a lady yesterday, and I was like, you realize all you've done? Like she had a business that was struggling, but they turned it around. She's a new project. She's kids. She's like, look what you've already done. You know, and it's look how much if you can change that from just pour me into, I can serve. How can I serve? How can I make the world a better place? How can I advance someone else's life? I think that's great. And that's how we find our gifts, right? And that's how we can really, I think this, like Jim Rohn said, the secret to greatness is the service of others. And he didn't just say, like Jesus said it too, right? It's old. But yeah, we have to serve. And other people can't get over hurdles you've already gotten over. So
Maybe a bit of improv before I go into my last two questions. Like you do see maybe out there today in the world, there's a lot of, what's the saying? It's like there's a lot of philosophers and not enough practitioners. Like maybe even in the coaching space as well. Like some people could say it's really saturated in a lot of ways. Like what do you say about that in general?
Yeah, I think once you get fully in your lane, there's no competition. There's only creativity. Like, you know, again, I coach coaches. A lot of coaches follow me and they might get ideas and inspired. I get ideas and inspired all the time. So it is what it is, you know. What can you say? Like, yes, coaching isn't regulated. So there's a lot of people say, I'm a coach, and they don't even understand what coaching really is. Like I always say, the difference in coaching and mentoring, you know, mentoring is my expertise to you. Coaching is bringing your expertise and truth out. And a lot of people say that they're coaches, and it's fine. Like you can spend all your time being upset and saying, oh, they're not coaches. Or even the fitness industry. I know guys who are passionate about fitness. They've been there 20 years, and there's all these guys who maybe look good and then they're suddenly fitness guys, but they haven't done the training. We can spend all day criticizing, judging, but all you can do is focus on your truth. What's your lane? And then everything will take care of itself, you know. That's what I believe.
No, I love that because there's a guy called Naval Ravichak, and he's a really good entrepreneur, and he says like authenticity is your competition. And yeah, I think you're so right. I think if you have your own lane, that's amazing. And you've said to me as well, and now I really understand the difference between coaching and mentoring. Like coaching is literally, as you said, just shining a light on someone like me. You're just asking questions, and then all of a sudden I have all the ideas inside me, and they're just coming out.
Yeah.
And all of these thoughts. Yeah.
Coaching is really questions, guiding, bringing you to a place, leading you in a place through the right questions that you're figuring out.
Yeah.
That's why I love coaching so much, because you have and people say, thanks, Aidan, you know, you helped me so much. I'm like, you did it.
Yeah.
Like I just shined the light, but you walked the path. You know what I mean? So I played a little part, but you did it. And that's what's so amazing, you know? Yeah. And the mentoring piece then is from your expertise and like my journey, 15 years as an entrepreneur, building businesses, building teams, thousands and thousands of meetings. and tens of thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. I have experience. I have an understanding and articulation and experience that I can maybe show you a better way. That's the mentorship side.
Yeah.
And when you can combine those, which we all can, but I love the art of coaching. I'll still do coaching sessions. My one-to-one sessions are still the majority of coaching. But then if I can show you a way, I'll show you. But the coaching is beautiful,
Yeah.
So yeah, the world, everyone's trying different things. And the difference between what's real and what's not is a lot of people have borrowed knowledge. Like when I started out, I'm learning from Jim, I'm learning from everybody else. It's borrowed knowledge. Now I have knowing because I've walked the path. And there'll be other things in life I'll have borrowed knowledge from as I continue to grow, but my knowing will get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think if you're looking at a coach or a mentor, make sure they're coming from knowing. That's it. Like make sure they're coming, they've walked the path. Like they can only take you as far as they've gone themselves. So just find out, you have to be asking better questions too. And that's why I always say to people, I'd rather show you what I do than tell you what I do. Because even there's people now and they'll know what I'm about from this, right? Because they can see it. Whereas, if you're like, this is what I do, this is what I do, it's like, it's not the same as showing what you do. Show your knowledge, demonstrate your knowledge. But if you're on the client side, you have to ask better questions and pay attention. Has this person walked the path? Do they know what they're talking about? Are they genuine? Are they authentic? Do they have my highest good in their, is that a priority for them? Or they just want a client, a number? And that's why I speak with every client, because I only win when you win. You know what I mean? That's what I want now. I don't want to motivate people or make them feel good. I want a result. I want to shift. Like, to me, that's what is powerful, So for those listening, seek the coach or the mentor who's, you can tell it's from truth, it's from experience. And that's a lot of the problems we'll solve. And who's not that, everyone who's not that will fade away eventually, right? Because the truth always comes to the surface.
Yeah. And even just going back to the vision and everything, just another, I guess, saying that I've heard from you and others is like, we're antennas. Like, I suppose when you have the awareness, then someone says something to you and maybe you act on it. Maybe they're like, hey, there's this book that's amazing. Then you straight away, because there's no coincidence that they've said that, it's meant to come to you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I've really experienced that we are antennas, we are receiving, and it's 100% about clearing everything. We're always conscious about the food we're eating, but we don't think about the thoughts we think. We don't think about the conversations we have, the music we listen to, the movies we watch. That's all affecting our receiving ability in our antenna, So if we're carrying burdens, fears, doubts, that's all blocking our connection with the universe, And that's why you can't be listening to depressing music all the time, watching scary movies, horror movies, angry movies, killing movies. Nothing wrong with watching a good, movie and enjoy it. But if you're feeding your mind every week with this kind of music, this kind of movie, this kind of conversation, this kind of blame, this kind of watching the match every time, you're not going to receive the insights for your truths, for your highest good and greatest joy. Right. So you have to protect your mind, feed your mind, and immerse your spirit in something that's moving you towards where you want to go.
Yeah. Cool. And just to wrap up, maybe 2 questions. So What impact do you, I guess, want your coaching to have on the world and your clients?
Wow, that's a deep question. I've never been asked that. I've never even thought about that myself. I don't know the impact. I guess if I can help people get back to who they really are, like that's, I think, why Back to Me has resonated so much with me, and I just trusted that feeling came. I had a whole other program and I just had that shift. And I was like, should I go with this? And I was like, yeah, go all in on this. And I did. And I changed everything to that. And for me, seeing the impact that's had in people has been like crazy. Just seeing people have these moments where they just break down out of freedom, like just letting go, recognizing all this truth that's been with them the whole time. Like that's the thing, all your truths are there, you just have to access them. And then when you recognize it, then you have this and you've seen that on some of the calls as well. And to me, that's the most amazing thing. Like, it's cool. I love all the business stuff and the sales stuff, multiplying your business, growing your business, and having breakthroughs and insights. I love that. But getting people back to themselves, where they can free themselves of some of the burden, giving them tools where they feel equipped to go through life and they can impact others. That would be really cool if that continued to spread, And this Back to Me thing, I'm starting to realize actually it's becoming a bit of a thing. Like, it's people are speaking it and using it. And I know even recently, even you and someone else said, what about kind of helping people teach that message? And I was like, oh, I never even thought of that. So yeah, I think it'd be interesting when I get the Back to Me book out there, how that's received. But I think that philosophy, it feels really right. And I think that's what I would love the most, is how many people that can help. That's it. And again, it's empowering people to do it themselves. You don't need me to do it. It can help if you have me, but you don't need it. We don't need anything. You have everything. You are enough. And as long as you keep seeking the truth, you're going to find the answers.
Yeah. Any final thoughts or golden nuggets that you want to maybe leave people with? It's a tough one.
It's a tough. You have to talk about where to go. I think the big thing is, start to know yourself better. Like, that's the thing. We often say, like, we're miles away from self-love. Everyone talks about self-love, but we're miles away. Let's start with self-like. And how do we get to self-like? We start to like ourselves when we trust ourselves. And how do we trust ourselves? When we trust ourselves, when we begin to know ourselves. And how do we know ourselves? We know ourselves when we begin to stop making conclusions and ask more questions. We make a decision to wake up and get curious again. So start there. Just start getting curious. Stop making conclusions about things you think you know. Start be curious to think, okay, what really? Ask some new questions. The right question is always the answer you're looking for. And that's why I love being a coach, is I get to give that question. That's what's so beautiful, But be curious, seek the truth, start to know yourself, become a student of yourself. Then you start to get insights. Trust yourself. Say yes. Trust yourself. Everyone says trust God, trust the universe, but trust yourself, because you are that too. You are connected to that too. So trust yourself. Then you'll start to like yourself more, because you're like, I can rely on myself. I trust myself. If I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then you'll start to, when you really like yourself, you know yourself, then you start to accept who you are. And when you have that, then you can love yourself. And then you don't need anything. You don't need to convince anyone. You don't need to convince a person. You don't need to convince a client. You don't need to convince a customer. You're just you. And life becomes way easier when you're just you. And then recognize that there's no arriving. You just have to keep walking the path, because life is constantly coming at you, right? So I always say there's no arriving. I thought, well, maybe now I'm good. I've learned all this stuff. Like, that's it.
Yeah.
No, like, we're always being pulled, and the world, because again, the whole universe, the whole world today is pulling us away from ourselves, like wants us distracted. In need mode, like, I need to get that, I need to buy this, I need the whole world this weekend is need. I know, I need that. No, you don't. You've been fine without it, and then 2 weeks you won't even think about it. You have it. So I think that's the biggest mission. Just get back to you, get back to God, back to truth, back to love. That's it. And love is a powerful force, but truth is more powerful, because you can't have love without truth. So let's seek truth. What's your truth? And then stand in your truth. When you know your truth, stand in it. Don't betray yourself for someone else, for something else. Stand in your truth, and then you'll be free.
Yeah. And then maybe just to circle it back and to end with Jim Rohn, like, he has a saying, right? And you've sort of expanded on that. So maybe if you just let everyone know, because I think that might be a good way to end it.
I'd love to be Jim, because I feel like I've made Jim better here. I'm joking now. Jim always said, formal education makes you a living. Self-education can make you a fortune. And when I was young, I was like, oh, I love that, because I actually didn't even finish school. And the Irish people here will know about the Leaving Cert. I did the first 2 weeks, because school was getting in the way of my education. So I left it and I began to really educate myself. And I love that. Like, that was such a relief too. Right? When you hear something, you're like, because you judge yourself and you're like, oh my God, I didn't finish school. And you hear that and you're like, wow, I can self-educate. I was reading 2 books a week. I was just obsessed then, and Jim kicked that off. But I realized the last few years that, self-education can make you a fortune, but self-exploration can set you free. And that's how I added to Jim. And I'm very proud to do that. But I believe that, like this, the exploration, like I said, being a seeker, being curious, being a student of yourself, that's what sets you free. The self-education can make you better skills, better at building a business, better at making money. It can make you a fortune. But it's the exploration of who you truly are, from the depths of you out, who you are in relation to this world, who you are in terms of your purpose, who you are, what your mission is, what your truth is. That's what's going to set you free. What's letting go of what's not you, recognizing what's not you, and letting go and just simplifying your life by getting back to you. And that's going to set you free. So self-exploration can set you free.
Perfect. We'll end it there. Thanks.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much for having me, Gary. It's been, I mean, some questions people have never asked me, which is really nice for a change.
Great. Perfect. Cool.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cool.